Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews.
Tim. I love that. Michael Buffer.
I know you love it. That's why.
Isn't his voice insured for like however many millions?
Yeah. Well, his brother was like a Michael and Bruce Buffer, right? One does boxing or did, and one does UFC.
What a funny talent. It just shows you, right, that you can really carve out a path for yourself in anything. Like, who would have thought that being a voice like that, you would then become like, you go down in history for it, right? And you'll be able to ensure your voice. Like he's a singer or a pop star. I'll do like a few announcements a few times a year.
But definitely, I bet he does a lot. My understanding is his house has to be oxygenate, certain moisture level.
Wow.
Oxygen. They live in Arizona.
Wow.
Both of them do. They probably do a lot more than we know, right? They probably do as many events as they can at that price point and cameos.
Wow.
They also took something that was very normal, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And then they made it something great. Like it's showmanship. If you watch the UFC ones, I think it's Bruce. Yeah, Bruce Buffer's UFC. He gets animated. And now, and he like turns around and always points really fast at the other guy, Reigning, undisputed, still heavyweight champion. No.
It's awesome. And that's what I mean. Like taking something so normal, let's call it, something that you so kind of nondescript.
Yep.
And it's what people look forward to in the boxing, right? Once that comes on, the show's about to really start. Even computer games. I can remember getting a computer game as a kid. I think it was like the Dreambox, or I can't remember, but a long time ago. And he was on it. Him and his voice came on at the beginning of the fights, and I used to love it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Ready to rumble.
Yeah. I think it was that game.
That's what it was called. You're talking about. That's what he said.
I think that's what it was called as well, though.
Okay.
But anyway, so what I wanted to bring to the table today, and see what you think about this. I have obviously, how would I say this? Rose-tinted glasses about this because I don't have kids. I'm a great parent to my imaginary kids. Neither and I. Yeah, we're great parents to our imaginary kids. But anyway, point being is, one of the driving forces, one of the contributors, if you will, to the disconnect that often occurs between a man and wife when they have kids is the lack of prioritization they give the relationship, right? Because, the relationship, as you said before, is like its own entity. It's like a business. It's its own entity, yeah? And you're always making deposits into that relationship or withdrawals or whatever. And the idea being is, one of the first and foremost philosophies of a relationship is that you both commit to bringing your best self to the relationship. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So point being is, when you have kids, in order for the kids to get the best of you and for the relationship to get the best of you and for you to get the best of you, some people believe that the priority of those three things goes man, wife, so individually. So let's say you and Erin, priority goes you and Erin on her own, then the relationship, and then the kids. Obviously, most people, it goes kids first, then maybe the relationship, then maybe themselves, or those two may do a bit of a dance, but inevitably, either way, kids first. So I'm curious, what's the realities of that? So what do you believe in terms of, okay, first of all, do you believe that that philosophy is true?
So I'm going to pause you there because I think we're going to lose people. That philosophy you're talking about is a philosophy that there's three people in any relationship, right? First, it's the husband, the two individuals. Go ahead, Tim.
Keep going.
Then the third entity of the relationship itself. And then the kids, right, as well.
yeah, kind of that hierarchy. So if
Yep.
you guys individually, then the relationship, yeah, and then the kids. And in order for the kids to get the best of you guys and for you guys to get the best, the order I just mentioned is the order that quote unquote should
Yep.
go in.
And so what's the reality of that?
Well, the reality is obviously most people have that flipped in its head, right?
100%.
And so, yeah, what is the reality? Being able to, first of all, do you agree that that should be the order, the original one I just said a moment ago?
With a ton of caveats.
Cool. Dive into those then. What are those caveats?
So yes, first and foremost, I think that each individual in the relationship, husband, wife, need to take care of their self first and foremost, because you can't go in and actually help the relationship if you're empty. Third should be the marriage. Fourth should be the kids, and last. However, kids get sick, right? Kids need things like going to school. Kids need help. Kids need attention. So those things get prioritized within the relationship so that you can take care of yourself first. And what I mean by that, Tim, is let's just say for me, my morning routine is very important to me, as you know. So in order to get my morning routine in and be able to help get my kids up and get them to school, I get up a little earlier, as you know, right? So that's different. It's not like I go, okay, I need to take care of myself first. So I'm going to sleep in, get up at 8 o'clock. Then from 8 to 9 is my own time. And then I'll see the kids when I see the kids. It doesn't work that way. And the kids are sick. I have plans. When a kid gets sick, I got to help them out. Kids do dumb things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kids sports. You get where I'm going with that. You get the idea. But I definitely believe that what tends to happen is marriages start to strain. And so people dump their love into their kids or their pets, into their kids, because when kids are young, they're giving you unconditional love. As they get older, that gets really conditional, guys. Right? Just ask anybody who's got a teenager or kids when they get 19, they leave the house and you're looking around and you don't know your partner. That's why so many divorces happen when the kids leave the house. Syndrome.
Yep.
That's because they haven't actually flourished in their relationship. They don't pay attention to the relationship. What also does a disservice to the kids when you don't do this, because they're seeing a dad or mom, but a dad in this case, because men we're talking to, growing up empty inside, not fulfilling themselves. So they're learning that's what I should do subconsciously. And their parents aren't really in passionate love. So that's what they're learning their relationship should be. And they're going to repeat the pattern over and over again. Whereas you put yourself first, right? Within reason, right? You take care, you and your wife do date nights. You do all the things that we always talk about here in The Powerful Man. The kids are going to watch that. They're going to have a much more loving place to grow up than if not.
Yeah. And I think, it's not an either or scenario, right? I'm not saying, hey, your needs come first. So like you said, it's not like the kids getting dropped off at school, if that's a priority, doesn't happen, right? By you, if that's something you enjoy to do and something that's important to you. But in order for that to experience, for you to be the best role model you can be as a father and as a husband, right? You've got to make sure that, I guess there's boundaries to a degree. Maybe boundaries is the word. And what I mean by that is, and they can be within yourself, discipline to get up earlier, so to go to bed earlier. I think also having a system as well, a way like an operating system, so that you. Oh, you're smirking.
You love systems.
Well, I'm just thinking, imagine trying to keep all this in your head, right? As the challenges come up of daily life. And you're trying to think about all the things that you get to do that really make a difference to move the needle for you personally and in your business and in your marriage and as a father. There's things that get to happen, and being able to remember those and have a way of doing them that becomes just habit and identity. It's just who you are. Then, trying to keep all that in your head when you're tired and you're getting pulled in a few different directions, it's got to be tough.
Well, it is. But, also just in sharing this, it's interesting. You and I operate very differently, right? As we know. And it's becoming more and clear to both of us as in our conversations about how do we help serve more men? Like, how do you and I separate our ego from actually going out there and serving more guys? We've come to some realizations. And in that sense, what I'm hearing you say is we have some things in my house that we've arranged as parameters, right? In the mornings, you know, I have a monitor, so I watch one of my children. My wife watches another. Sometimes the kids get up at 5:30, right? And I'm not going to just leave them in their, you know, in their beds, in their rooms, and lock them in until I'm done meditating and doing everything. No.
Oh, obviously.
So it doesn't always work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have certain things that like are almost like routines that you kind of fall in, like kids' schools at the same time. This happens. Swim. My son Bodie is going to swim right in an hour and a half. Right. So those are things that I can kind of count on, although swim might stop and soccer might start. So you can't be in a super routine. So you have to be a little bit more like water, I think, as a parent. Whereas if you're a dog parent, you don't have to be as much. There's just not those many requirements. You know, you could leave Patty and Wilma at home with a bowl of food and water and call it a day. I mean, you can. Now, you may not choose to, but you could. I can't leave my kids home with a bowl of food and water and and call it a day. They'd be dead.
Some people do.
Some people do, yeah. So
Um,
there's some stark differences there, and there's also differences that come in and play on your emotional ties. And I think for a lot of men, it's a lot of guilt comes into it, quite honestly, right? And guilt is a major driver for a lot of guys. They feel guilty, and guys I was talking to the other day, it's guilt that is driving and running the show because they feel guilty they're not doing more. They feel guilty they're not spending more time with their kids.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my point because again, just to reiterate, I'm not saying that you have these routines that are non-negotiable. And Bodie wakes up early, and you're like, "Nah, Bodie, you're waking up too early. You couldn't." Of course, right? You want to be you are a great father, so that means you're gonna get up and change things around. Cool, get it. And in order to having something you can fall back on, right? So you know what works for you, right? You may have a list of, let's say, 5 things that you do in the morning, 4, whatever. But you'll know there's 1 or 2 things or one thing that if if you just get that one thing done, then it makes all the difference. The other things, yeah, they're nice. I'd like to get those done as well. If I have time, I will. But if I get this one thing done, then yeah, I feel so much better and it moves the needle for me. And I think maybe that's part of the trap that guys fall into when you consider this idea of, okay, it's the individuals first, so you and Erin, then it's the relationship, and then it's the kids. Well, that's just not possible because life happens. But what I'm hearing you say here, it can be to a degree. And I think identifying those 1 or 2 key things. So in the relationship, for example, it might be as simple as once a week when the kids go to bed, you guys have a dinner date, or a routine that one of the guys shared with us, in fact, that his friends do, is once a week or once every 2 weeks, there was like a meeting that him and his wife had. And the meeting was over dinner. And it was very informal, very fun and friendly, but they went through things that might have been a bit boring or otherwise got put off, but they made it fun. They got updates on the kids, they got updates on the finances, updates on other little things, but they also then brought them together and helped them to feel like a team. Point being is, let's say you identify one thing that you can do in the morning, just one thing that makes a difference. And the one thing in the relationship is that one date, let's say in the week, where you come together. Then regardless of what happens around then, the new situations with the kids or kids being sick or things changing, if you know that you can at least maintain the boundaries, either bring childcare in for that one night a week or, figure out how you can do that one thing on a morning as guys as well, right? Then at least you know that you're going to follow that formula to a degree. I think more than anything, having the mindset that you know that you're following that and those tiny little things will make such a huge difference than just going, do you know what? No, can't do that. It's too much. You know what? Stress. I'm just going to leave it and I'm just going to, respond to life as it happens. I think that scenario, although it's slightly different, it could just be 1 or 2 things in the week. Over years, it's like a plane, right? If it's off course by 1 degree, over the however many miles, it's complete different country. Same scenario here. Those tiny little differences can make a huge change in the trajectory of your relationship and your life, business, everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we talked about in a previous podcast, the whole idea of the cinnamon rolls, right? If you're starving, you're going to steal the cinnamon rolls. What happens often for men and women is when they have kids, the relationship dries out a little bit, right? The wife doesn't want to have sex. She's got a baby feeding off her, totally get it. The guy's deprived. So the guy pulls away naturally a little bit because, the guy can't relate to this blob of a being, right? It's just harder for men to relate to babies, and women are hooked on oxytocin, right? That is kicked in. And then the wife is in love with this thing biologically, just it has to be that way. And so women start getting their needs met by their kids. And that's where the dangerous slippery slope happens, in my opinion. Because then the wife gets used to the kids meeting her needs of love, affection, all those things. And kids do it naturally because they need food. And then the dad, you know, just feels left out, so to speak, and stops filling his own cup in the attempt to seek the wife's affection. So I'm with you. So the way Aaron and I do it, Tim, is we do connection time almost every night, right? And in the morning. And so I come down, I do my morning routine. I have about 2.5 hours of my own. And then the kids usually wake up and I, give or take, right? You got to be very fluid with it. And I go up and I spend about an hour and a half with my family, and I come back here and we do a podcast like we're doing now. So I get to break that up based on the kids' cycle. So the way we decided to do is, what is it that we want as individuals? And what do we want as a couple? And then how can we fit those things into our family's life, right? So the third or fourth entity would be the family, right? How do we fit it into our family? What do we want for our family? And we guide that to our best of our ability. But like last night, our youngest kept waking up. And so we kept on having to wake up. And so that changes the whole morning. Do you get up at 4:25, which is when I get up? Do you do these things? So it throws things off kilter. But as long as you're taking care of the rocks of what's most important to you consistently, that's the key. And I think where a lot of guys get caught up in this is the kids are first, right? Take care of the kids first. Then the guy goes, provides. The woman provides nurturing. The woman's getting hurt. Both people are getting their needs and significance met by these kids, not each other. They grow apart, but they're still getting what they need from the kids. The kids grow up, and guess what? Kids want to hang out with their friends. They don't hang out with mom and dad anymore. And then now you have two strangers that have been managing a child's life. It's like two business managers coming out of like managing a rock star who's aged out and doesn't have any more bands. They got to figure out, what do we do now?
I think the guys, you talk about the women getting their needs met through the kids, guys are getting their needs met through business. Significance, recognition, growth, all that kind of stuff.
100%. 100%. And they're feeling like, okay, I got to go provide more. Johnny needs swim lessons and Jenny needs ballet lessons, or it's winter now. They need new snowboards and they've grown out of them. So, and we justify working harder. Which the truth is, a lot of guys are hiding out in their work.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So what would your advice be then? Let's say there's a guy listening to this and, he's resonating, right? I'm just too busy. We've done a podcast on I'm too busy to date my wife. When I've got more time, that's when I'll date her. Similar philosophy, right?
Yep.
Guy listening, Doug, I'm just too busy, right? The kids are here. I've got to take care of the kids. And he's in this situation. What advice would you give him to turn this around?
First thing is be honest with yourself. If your son or daughter comes to you and seeking your wisdom as a father and asks you and says, Dad, I'm just feeling depleted. I don't have any time for myself. I just feel completely drained. What would you tell them? You would say, life is short. Take care of yourself. Do something fun. So you get to take your own advice in this sense. And then also, guys, sit down with your wife, validate, right? Use the hidden motives technique, validate her, and then come up with what's important for her What's important for you? What's important for your relationship? And then how do you fit them into your family? What's important for your family? Then how do you all fit those all in together? Coming from the perspective of how can we make this work versus can we is a different paradigm altogether. And you start in that inquiry. And I like that your friend does these informal, I call them house management meetings, right? These informal meetings, and makes it fun. That's the key. And I tried it early on with Aaron, Tim, like doing finance meetings. I talk about that a lot. We try to talk about money and it ended up in a fight. And I'm like, okay, we'll open a bottle of wine and it'll be more fun. And of course, alcohol always helps, when you're fighting, right? Sometimes we'd have sex, sometimes we get in bigger fights. So you got to make it fun. That's the key. And have something that works for you, a system that works for you, a system that works for you, as you were saying, Tim, a system that works for you and your family. But make sure you're doing the right order, right? Self comes first. Maybe you don't do your morning routine every morning. That's okay. I don't do mine every morning either, right? But you're getting it most of the time. Maybe you don't work out every day, but you're working out most of the time, right? And sometimes you got to get creative, right? The other day, I wasn't able to work out because my daughter, took my workout time because she was ill. And so I had my son and I wanted to play with my son. So I threw my son on a sled, a weight sled, and I threw the vest on and I made it like a train, right? And I said, hold on. And I just started running with him through the gravel. And it was a killer workout, but I was making it fun. So there's ways you got to get creative around fitting these things into your lifestyle, right? Rather than just putting your head down. And recognize right away, if you guys are putting emphasis on your kids, your relationship will fail, period. End of story. I'll be that dogmatic about it. It will fail. You got to put your love in yourself first, your wife second, then your kids and your family unit as third. I think that's, just the way it's got to be.
Love it.
So as always, guys, I'll say take action. Recognize if you're in this, I would say almost every guy is in this at one point or another. And once you recognize and have optics on, okay, this is really what's happening, now you can pivot and shift. And guys, if this is your first time listening to the show, go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus and go ahead and pick up a free training. And of course, if you've been with us for a while, we're asking you guys, leave a review. That's how a lot of guys are finding us, is just by leaving a review in here, just an honest review so other men like you can find us, and share this with a friend. It's a conversation and topic. We need more great men just like you. So that's what Tim and I are asking. And again, just take some action, guys. Have an amazing week, and we'll talk to you next time on The Powerful Man Show.